Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And tonight's Dynamite was from the Silverstein Eye Centers Arena in Kansas City. And this was the go-home show for AEW Revolution, which is going to be happening this Saturday night on pay-per-view. And tonight's Dynamite, as a go-home show, they delivered. It was a good show tonight, Dynamite. Really enjoyed it. And we had the 30-minute Iron Man match between Kenny Omega and Pac. We also saw a six-man tag, the Jurassic Express versus the Inner Circle in a six-man tag. We also had Hikaru Shida versus Yuka Sakazaki, Big Swole, and Shanna in a fatal four-way. And in the main event, we saw the weigh-in between John Moxley, and Chris Jericho, which that was really awesome. That was really good. But all in all, good Dynamite tonight. Good Dynamite to get us all hyped up for Revolution this Saturday. And if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, did a movie hunting video where I went to the Salvation Army. And if you guys haven't checked it out, definitely do. I uploaded it a couple of hours ago. So definitely go check it out if you haven't seen it. But let's get on with the Dynamite review. So Dynamite opened up tonight with the 30-minute Iron Man match. Pac versus Kenny Omega. And this was a really awesome Iron Man match. This was awesome from beginning to end. And the match started with Pac and Kenny Omega locking up. They backed into the ropes. Kenny Omega ended up giving a clean break to Pac. Both of them were trading counters. Omega ended up hitting a basement drop kick, but then ended up eating a super kick from Pac. And the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, were out here. They accompanied Kenny Omega. And Hangman Adam Page did not come out with Kenny Omega also. You know, he didn't come out there. He was nowhere to be found. So we had Kenny Omega end up delivering a flip over the top onto Pac, which looked awesome. And then what was really awesome was Pac was on the apron, and Kenny Omega went for a moonsault, and Pac ends up catching Kenny Omega and delivers a tornado DDT to Kenny Omega on the floor, which that was crazy. And then both Pac and Kenny Omega went back into the ring. Omega ended up fighting off Pac, and he ended up headbutting Pac to the mat. Pac ends up hitting a brainbuster from the top rope onto Kenny Omega, and Kenny Omega went up and he started fighting back on Pac with a couple of punches. Pac ended up hitting a slingshot cutter to Kenny Omega, went for the pin. Omega ended up kicking out of that, and there was a point where Pac ended up delivering a superplex from the top onto Kenny Omega. And then we saw Kenny Omega ends up doing the Tiger Driver 98 on Pac. went for the cover. Pac ended up kicking out of that. And throughout this whole match, the crowd was really into it. That's how good this 30-minute Iron Man match was between the both of them. I mean, both Kenny Omega and Pac really delivered here. So Kenny Omega ended up going to try the one-winged angel, but Pac ended up hitting a suplex, with the bridge, and it was a close 3 count because Kenny Omega ended up kicking out of it. So then Pac ends up getting dropped face first on the turnbuckle, and Kenny Omega ends up hitting a Snapdragon suplex, a V-trigger, and then he went for the cover. Pac ended up kicking out of it. So, Pac ends up, and before all that, Pac ended up going for a sunset flip powerbomb, which was awesome. So that's when Kenny Omega ended up, delivering the Snapdragon suplex, the V-trigger. Pac ended up kicking out of it. Pac ended up kicking out of it. Then Pac went out to the floor, went under the ring. He then retrieved a chair. So he then takes the chair, smacks Kenny Omega in the head with the chair, and the referee ended up calling for the bell. And because of that, Pac got disqualified. And this was the very first disqualification in AEW. There was no disqualifications before, in the months that AEW has been on the air. It was like 4 months since AEW's been on the air. So in 4 months, there was not any disqualifications in AEW. This is the very first. So because of that, Pac ended up getting disqualified. So Kenny Omega ended up getting the one up on Pac. So it was 1-0, 1-0. And so then Pac ends up smacking Kenny Omega in the back of the head. The Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, end up checking on Kenny Omega. They tried to give him some water. Pac ends up delivering a drop kick to Kenny Omega. Then Pac ends up climbing to the top and delivers the Black Arrow. So he went for the cover. There you go. Pac ended up picking up his first fall. So it was tied at 1-1. And during the split screen commercial break, we saw Pac end up continuing to beat down on Omega. Pac ends up trying to look to go for another Black Arrow. Kenny Omega ended up rolling out of the ring. So Pac ends up beating down on Kenny Omega, and they both get back in the ring, and then both are on the ring apron. Both Pac and Kenny Omega are on the ring apron, and we see from the ring apron, Pac ends up delivering a Falcon Arrow down to the floor, which looked crazy. And the crowd was chanting, "Holy shit." But it was a really nasty looking Falcon Arrow that Pac delivered to Kenny Omega on the floor. So then Pac ends up delivering a drop kick that sends Kenny Omega into the referee and also ringside physician that was out there. So Pac ends up going under the ring again, and he retrieves a table. So Pac ends up sending a table up on the outside. He brings Kenny Omega over. Referee was still down at this point. So Pac ends up heading up to the top rope. And Pac ends up heading to the top, and he delivers a shooting star press from the top through the table onto Kenny Omega, and it was crazy. It was crazy how he landed that shooting star press from the top through the table. So Pac ends up getting back in the ring. The referee at this point got back up and was in the ring. So the referee was, doing a 10 count. When he got to 9, when the referee got to 9, Pac was in the ring. And Kenny Omega was still on the outside. So Kenny Omega barely ended up getting in the ring before the 10 count. So Pac ends up going for, the Black Arrow. Kenny Omega ends up getting his knees up. So Kenny Omega ends up delivering the V-trigger to Pac's face. Ends up delivering another one. And Pac ends up kicking out of it. So Kenny Omega ends up delivering another V-trigger. And he goes for the one-winged angel. That gets reversed by Pac into Poisarana. And then Pac ends up landing another tornado DDT to Kenny Omega. He then locks in the brutalizer on Kenny Omega. Omega got to the ropes. So Pac ended up going for another brutalizer. Kenny Omega ended up fighting it off. And this was 1 minute left during this whole Iron Man match. So Pac still has the brutalizer locked in. Kenny Omega was hanging on, and time expired, and the match was still at a tie. It was still 1-1. So Pac ends up getting in the referee's face. He ends up dropping the referee, knocking him out. And then Justin Roberts, the ring announcer, he gets on the mic. He ends up saying that the match will continue under sudden death rules because, of course, the match was tied 1-1 for Omega and Pac. So the match ended up, continuing. Aubrey Edwards was now the referee here. So Kenny Omega ended up delivering a knee to Pac's face. And then Omega ended up hitting the one-winged angel to Pac. Got the 3 count. There you go. Kenny Omega ended up winning the match. But overall, very awesome match. Really enjoyed this match from beginning to end. The crowd really enjoyed this. And it was very entertaining. Both Omega and Pac delivered here. And then post-match, Tony Schiavone ended up talking with Pac on the stage. Tony Schiavone ends up asking Pac about all the talking that he did and for him to lose to Kenny Omega. And Pac ends up thinking that Tony Schiavone was trying to mock him. And then we see out comes Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy ended up walking up to Pac. He ends up taking his sunglasses off. And as soon as Orange Cassidy took off his glasses, Pac immediately takes out Orange Cassidy. He ends up kicking him, and Pac ends up storming off. But that's what happened post-match. But something got announced with Orange Cassidy, which I will get to later on in the review. And then after that, we saw Lexi Nair, and she wanted to talk to Chris Jericho because Jericho was going to be involved in the weigh-in between him and Jon Moxley before their match at Revolution on Saturday. So Jake Hager ends up coming out because Lexi Nair ended up knocking on the door, thinking Jericho was going to come out, but all she got was Jake Hager. So Lexi ends up asking Hager if she can get a word with Jericho. And Hager's just standing there like, he just stares at her and then goes back in, shuts the door. So that was basically that. So then we had a 6-man tag. Sammy Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz of the Inner Circle versus the Jurassic Express, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Marco Stunt. And this was a pretty decent 6-man tag. We had a quick start to the match with the Jurassic Express taking control of the match first. And then the Inner Circle, Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz end up fighting back. They got rid of Luchasaurus. Sorry about that, but I was saying the Inner Circle was fighting back. They ended up getting rid of Luchasaurus. Marco Stunt ended up delivering a Hurricanrana on both Ortiz and Santana. Guevara ended up coming in, ends up hitting a springboard double stomp to Marco Stunt. And Santana, here he was still wearing his eye patch. And in the end of the match, you had Jungle Boy ends up delivering a snap Hurricanrana because Guevara was in there. He ended up grabbing the loaded sock that Santana, Ortiz carries around, and Darby Allin ends up showing up. Darby Allin ends up taking away that sock, and so Jungle Boy ended up coming in. He delivered a snap Hurricanrana to Guevara. There you go. The Jurassic Express win the match. All in all, decent 6-man tag between the Jurassic Express and the Inner Circle. And post-match, we saw Sammy Guevara. He ends up going after Darby Allin, but Guevara ended up getting back body dropped out of the ring from Darby Allin onto Santana and Ortiz. That was pretty much basically that. And then we had the Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent, along with Orange Cassidy, versus the Butcher and the Blade, along with the Bunny, aka Allie. And basically, we had Chuck Taylor ends up getting knocked off the apron once the bell rang, and this was a pretty decent match between them, between the Best Friends and the Butcher and the Blade. So, like I said, Chuck Taylor ended up getting knocked off the ring apron. Butcher and the Blade, they beat up on Trent a little bit. They end up hitting a drop kick suplex combo on Trent. Blade was delivering some chops to Trent in the corner. Trent ended up fighting back. We had a chant from the crowd of, Best Friends chant. So the Blade ends up powerbombing Trent on the ropes, and it bounced him back into the ring. And there was a point in the match where the Bunny ends up getting involved, where Allie gets involved. And Orange Cassidy is in the ring. So both Orange Cassidy and the Bunny were in the ring. Orange Cassidy went to put his hands in his pocket. Bunny ends up stopping him, and the Bunny ends up taking Orange Cassidy's shades, his sunglasses. So she ends up going for a low blow kick, just like what happened last week, and Orange Cassidy end up blocking it. So Orange Cassidy blocks the low blow kick, and he ends up taking, the bunny ears that she wears, and he puts them on. He puts them on him, which was funny, and the crowd popped for that for Orange Cassidy, and then after he took her bunny ears and put them on him, he puts his hands in his pockets. So the bunny ends up trying to punch Orange Cassidy, but he ducks it. He ends up avoiding the blade. And then Orange Cassidy does a suicide dive, a very huge suicide dive on the Butcher. And the referee ended up getting, Bunny out of the ring. And that's when the Best Friends end up hitting a strong zero on the Blade. So there you go. Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent end up winning the match. But overall, it was a decent match. It was a very fun match between Best Friends and the Butcher and the Blade. The Best Friends, they're a fun, tag team. Chuck Taylor and Trent, and them having Orange Cassidy with them is just really awesome. I like when they hug, the whole crowd enjoys it, and the whole pan back that the camera does whenever they hug is just awesome. So then post-match, Tony Schiavone comes into the ring and he makes an announcement. And the announcement was that on Saturday at AEW Revolution, it's going to be Pac versus Orange Cassidy at Revolution on Saturday. So Tony Schiavone ends up asking the Best Friends about their rise in the tag team division. So Chuck Taylor ends up saying they are on their way up. But in regards to Orange Cassidy's match against Pac, the joke is on him. The joke is on Pac, because he ends up saying on Saturday, Orange Cassidy is going to try. So and that erupted into a "he's going to try" chant from the crowd. So there you go. It's going to be Pac versus Orange Cassidy at Revolution on Saturday. This is Orange Cassidy's. It's going to be Orange Cassidy's in-ring debut. It's good that it's on a pay-per-view. But that's going to be a pretty fun match to see. Pac versus Orange Cassidy. And my prediction, if I were to make a prediction, I know Pac is probably going to win it. Pac is probably going to defeat Orange Cassidy. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, that's my prediction. But all in all, it was a fun match. Fun tag team match. And then we had the women's match. It was a fatal four-way. It was Yuka Sakazaki versus Big Swole versus Hikaru Shida versus Shanna. And this was a pretty decent women's match. You have to say the women's matches are getting better now with the AEW Women's Division. But, still the division, it still needs a lot of work. So, The match started. We had Yuka Sakazaki looking on. Everyone was she was cheering everybody, and then we saw they drop kick Yuka, Big Swole, Hikaru, Shida, and Shanna. They end up drop kicking Yuka Sakazaki, and that got a bunch of boos from the crowd. And Yuka ends up hitting a Hurricanrana on Hikaru Shida, which was pretty cool. Big Swole ended up coming in with a shoulder tackle on Sakazaki. Shanna ended up tossing Big Swole out of the ring. All the women were trying to go for a pin. There was no 3 counts. Big Swole ended up eating a super kick. And towards the end of the match, we had Hikaru Shida end up delivering a knee strike to Big Swole. Hikaru Shida ended up winning the match. But overall, it was a decent women's match. The women's matches, like I said, they're getting better. But the division still needs a lot of work, in my opinion. So then we had Evil Uno of the Dark Order. Evil Uno ends up saying that he and Stu Grayson will take on SCU, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky at Revolution. And Evil Uno then tells Christopher Daniels that he will find out that he is now obsolete. So pretty much that was basically what Evil Uno had to say. And then we had an interview, sit-down interview. Jim Ross was interviewing Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page, and also their challengers at Revolution, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. So Jim Ross ended up asking the group if they thought this would be a match a year ago. Matt ends up saying that he's surprised to see Adam Page and Kenny Omega be the champions. And he ends up saying that he felt like a veteran tag team, like themselves, would hold the titles. So Kenny Omega ends up saying, it just kind of happened. It just kind of happened that him and Adam Page, Hangman Adam Page, are the champions. So Hangman ends up questioning Kenny Omega, saying that it sounds like it was just an accident that they both are the champions. So Matt ends up pointing out that, Hangman Adam Page, it brought a drink to the interview. So Jim Ross, JR was wondering why Hangman Adam Page was uncomfortable, because it was shown that he was moving around a lot. And Page ends up saying that he's fine and that he isn't uncomfortable. So Matt ends up saying, even though they are friends, they are also competitors when they are in the ring. He ended up saying ultimately they are the best in the world, and that him and Nick are taking the titles. So Matt ends up saying that they will shake hands and, they are the elite. So Page can't believe that the elite is bigger than the titles, than the World Tag Team titles. So Page ends up saying that he tried to walk out of the elite months ago. Matt ends up saying that they made Page a star after bringing him in their Being the Elite show, which is on AEW's YouTube channel. So Nick ends up saying that Page was just a jobber and they made him a star. Yes, they were mentioning him because Page was a jobber in Ring of Honor. Even though I don't watch Ring of Honor though, but so Page ends up saying that the tag titles were the biggest achievement of his career, and that he doesn't appreciate Nick trying to take that away from him. So Page ends up seeing that his drink was empty, and then he left. So now is pretty much the interview with those guys from JR. But this looks like it's going to be a very awesome match. Seeing Hangman Adam Page, Kenny Omega versus Matt and Nick at Revolution. It's going to be a great match. The titles are on the line. And then it was announced that Lance Archer, which is a new guy that they signed. They made the announcement today that AEW has signed Lance Archer. Right here, the guy was, former TNA star, TNA guy. But it was announced that he's going to be making his debut on Dynamite next week when Dynamite is going to be in Denver. It's going to be in Denver next week. So there you go. Lance Archer is going to debut next week. And then we had the main event, which was the Jericho and Moxley weigh-in. So they had a scale in the middle of the ring. And Tony Schiavone was in the ring. And he announces that Gary Michael Capetta is going to host the weigh-in. So Gary Michael Capetta, he's one of the many good ring announcers. So Moxley ended up coming out first. And then Jericho came out. Jericho came out with the Inner Circle, of course, with Guevara, Santana, Ortiz, and Hager. So Jericho gets in the ring. Capetta ends up asking Jericho to step up first on the scale. So Jericho is on the mic, and he ends up telling Capetta that based on his delivery, it's no wonder WCW went out of business. So yeah, jab at WCW right there. So Jericho ends up calling Capetta a weird little man. He ends up telling him that the champion always goes on last. And so the ring we saw was filled with photographers, security. So Moxley ends up getting on the scale. They end up weighing him and reveals that Moxley weighs in at 234 pounds. So now it's time for Jericho to get on the scale. So Jericho was taking his time to get on the scale. He was taunting the crowd a bit. And Jericho ended up getting in Moxley's face. So Moxley ends up headbutting Jericho. Moxley headbutted Jericho, hard, and that busted Jericho open. Jericho was bleeding from the face. And there's a picture, as I'm making this video now, that Jericho, there's a picture on AEW's social media, yes, on their Twitter, that Jericho received stitches, like they stitched him up because of him getting busted open from that headbutt by Moxley. So the Inner Circle then took down Moxley. Dustin Rhodes ends up coming out. He ends up clotheslining Jake Hager. Of course, hyped for their match on Saturday at Revolution. So Dustin ends up clotheslining Hager out of the ring. They brawl into the crowd. They brawl all the way to the back. And then, sorry about that again, but I was saying Hager and Dustin, they brawled to the back. And then we hear JR, because they were brawling, both of them were brawling, and JR ends up going, "For the love of God, stay away from the Dippin' Dots," because they had a Dippin' Dots stand right there, and Excalibur ended up saying, "And also the Bud Light," because the Bud Light stand was next to the Dippin' Dots stand. So Hager ended up blowing Dustin, sending Dustin into a wall. Hager ends up tossing Dustin into the Dippin' Dot stand, and that led to Excalibur saying, "Oh, not the Dippin' Dots." And then JR goes, "Oh, damn Dippin' Dots, what did they do? What did they do to anybody?" Which I laughed at the commentary by both JR and Excalibur. That was really funny. So then we go back to the ring. Darby Allin ended up running out with his skateboard. He drops Santana with the skateboard. Guevara ends up hitting a huge running knee to Darby Allin as Darby ends up getting in the ring. So Guevara ends up taking Darby's skateboard. He smashes the skateboard to Darby Allin's head, and the skateboard, breaks. So Moxley was still trying to fight back in the ring. He ended up dropping Ortiz, and then it was only Moxley and Jericho in the ring. Moxley ends up going for the paradigm shift, but Santana ended up low blowing him, and it led for Jericho to hit the Judas effect to Moxley. And then Jericho ends up delivering the paradigm shift, Moxley's own finisher, to Moxley himself. So then Jericho gets up. Jericho ends up holding the title, and he puts his foot on Moxley. And that's how Dynamite went off the air. But really enjoyed this whole weigh-in and the brawl that ensued between Jericho and Moxley, where Moxley ended up headbutting Jericho, busting him open. I like the feud between right here with Dustin and Hager. Set up hype for their match on Saturday, which could be a decent match between the both of them. It's going to be the first time that Hager is making his in-ring debut in AEW, but it's only on the pay-per-view. Same with Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy, it's going to be his in-ring debut on AEW, but only on the pay-per-view. I have to say, Darby Allin versus Guevara might be, a fun match. So everybody's behind Darby Allin, so. Well, no, Dynamite tonight was a good show. It was a good go-home show, in my opinion. It delivered. So, but anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review, the AEW Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. And definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And I will see you all tomorrow with the Super Showdown review. Not looking forward to the show. this show might be a disaster tomorrow because it's a glorified house show in Saudi Arabia for WWE. So, but not looking forward to it. I'd say it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be a shit show. So, anyways, that's it for the video. And I will see you all tomorrow with the Super Showdown review.